I did that last month.
Supposed to be on the right side.
Switch the flag on us.
Well, there's that.
Is that actually the correct side?
Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda? Thank you, Sarah. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Tim. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Approval of consent agenda. On the consent agenda this evening, we have the approval of the August 8th, 2023 Board of Education regular meeting minutes, the approval of the August 21st, 2023 Board of Ed retreat meeting minutes, a donation from Grin and Barrett Enterprises to Gildersleeve Elementary School in the amount of $372.84, and the approval of an out-of-state field trip for the Portland High School cross-country team to Thetford, Vermont in October. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Meg. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Stacy. Any further discussion?
Just one element, I noticed it just because that's how my head works. On the board retreat meeting, it's very insignificant, but it starts with the meeting called order at 8:30 p.m. But it was AM, so just.
Yeah, let's amend that.
So we just amend that and everything else looks stuffy.
Good catch.
Yeah.
All right. Tricia, are we all set to amend that? So with the amendment to the approval of the August 21st retreat meeting minutes, any further discussion?
I do have one question on the field trip. Is there any allowance made for students that would need financial assistance, be it minor?
Ms. Olson, do you use your student activity accounts to help out students on trips like that? So the answer is yes.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Good question. All right. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. All right. Audience of citizens. Do we have anyone with us in person or online this evening who would like to address the board at this point? All right. And there'll be a second opportunity at the end of the meeting if there's anyone who wishes to address the board. Portland Public Schools Spotlight. I'm really excited about this one. Charles, are you ready to introduce us to Portland High
Sure.
Schools?
We're gonna have to do this in abstention. So Dylan, can
Okay.
you pull up that
Sam.
website? So I wanna start by saying, and I'm glad this is being recorded because Sam and his family can watch it tomorrow. Sam's unable to join us tonight or any Tuesday night, right? And this is just sort of a part of his character. He asked me to let you know why, and just I think in seeing the reason why he's not here tonight, you'll understand what a truly special person this is. So Sam, in addition to working with us, is the choir director of the Middlesex Hospital Chorus.
Vocal cords.
Vocal chorus. Right? So here is Sam's group, and he is there every Tuesday night working with them. And our mission is to relieve stress, lift spirits, and heal souls with music. Right? That is pure Sam. So I thought we would just start by saying he couldn't be here tonight because this is at this moment where he is as he's rehearsing with this group. And this group he told me a little bit about today as I caught him with high school faculty. They sing for people in hospice and people in the hospital, and they've actually performed here a few times, and they're a wonderful community asset and something that Sam contributes his talents to. So that's why Sam can't be here tonight, and he can't be here any Tuesday night because I was going to reschedule every Tuesday night. This is the group he's rehearsing with. But I think that I just have to say one of my favorite things about this past convocation was that we got to announce the Portland Educator of the Year, and that was Sam. So it was a very thoughtful, deliberate process that we went through to select an Educator of the Year, and I'm really excited to have it back. Meg, maybe you can remember it. I'm not sure exactly. I think it was 2005.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
It's been a
and
while.
it's great to acknowledge great teachers.
Right, so
and-
over
and have
15,
them-
20 years since we've had an
And also to
Educator.
be acknowledged by their fellow teachers. That's really the exciting part of that.
Absolutely.
No,
Yep. So the neat thing is Sam is going on and he's going to compete in the Connecticut State Teacher of the Year. This is an option that he had. It wasn't a requirement of being Portland's local, but he is going to go on. And if I wrote him a letter of recommendation and could think of no better person to represent the state of Connecticut, maybe even become a National Teacher of the Year. So we did recognize him at convocation, and he gave an outstanding address. I think there were at least 2 or 3 standing ovations, both when he was named and at the end of his speech. It was outstanding. And I did include in your packet tonight a press release that we put out about Sam. I thought this was very well done and says it all. I just want to read the 3rd paragraph out of that press release into the record here and share a little bit about Sam, because he is a remarkable individual. So Mr. Tucker is a beloved educator within the district who is entering his 21st year in teaching and his 12th year as a member of the Portland Public Schools. He currently serves as director of the secondary chorus program, in addition to teaching 7th grade music and AP UConn ECE Music Theory, a college credit bearing course for PHS upperclassmen, and being the director of the Middlesex Chamber of Choral Singers at the Middlesex Hospital. For Tucker, being a teacher requires a lot: time, effort, and emotional investment. We do this work without intent to be recognized, but being recognized feels amazing. As he sees it, quote, "It's not only validating for me personally, but it is also a validation of those who work alongside me and that help me to be my best with the kids," right? And that's Sam in a nutshell, right? I mean, I think that anybody who excels in their profession is often want to make sure that the people around you that lift you up and enable that success are in equal parts deserving of those recognitions. And I think that was certainly a centerpiece of Sam's acceptance remarks at convocation last week. So that's our spotlight. It doesn't get any better than that. Sam's wonderful. We'll keep you informed, and if he goes on as part of the Teacher of the Year, I know he's going to be recognized at a ceremony at the Bushnell this fall, and let's keep our fingers crossed for him. He's a wonderful guy. I know I see Kate nodding her head. We couldn't do better than picking Sam to bring back the Educator of the Year. And I'm really looking forward to see this take off and flourish for many years to come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yep, I'm excited.
Yeah. Any questions for Charles? It's too bad Sam couldn't be here, but we
No, it
completely
is too
understand.
bad. I know, he is, you couldn't pick a better person, I didn't know him as well. My kids didn't do much with the choir, but just being part of that team, he was always phenomenal.
He's a phenomenal person.
He really is, he really is.
So, and I'd also want to recognize the board. Thank you for helping us bring Educator of the Year back. I know last year we talked a lot about ways that we could better celebrate outstanding teaching in Portland. This was a huge step in the right direction. I think we have more work to do. I think that there are lots of ways to celebrate excellence in the classroom, but this is definitely a step in that direction, and I thank you for that.
Thank you. All right, we will move on to our student representative report. I know that, well, I don't know, you fill us in. Do we have?
We have Dorothy now, so
We have
I'm
Dorothy with us.
interviewing
Great.
this year's coming up. Is that next week? This awesome. So we've have those scheduled, but Dorothy couldn't be with us in person tonight, but she agreed to give us an update on the start of the school year. And likely by our next meeting, we'll have whether it's Dorothy or others seated with us, and they're going to stay with us for the whole meeting.
Perfect.
Dorothy will.
Excuse me.
Mhm.
Might be a bad internet connection.
We could get almost to her. Oh, it looks like we lost Dorothy.
She might be re-entering. Keep an eye on the.
Maybe we'll give her one more minute. to get situated.
Hi, Dorothy.
Muted.
Can you hear me?
Ooh, we
Yes.
can hear you, yes.
Okay. Okay. Good.
We don't, we don't hear you.
Start.
The video is probably too much for the connection.
Hey Dorothy, what if you turn your video off and just use audio? Maybe we'll be able to hear you better.
Yeah. Turn it off. Okay. Is that better?
That might be better.
Yes. Okay. Great.
Perfect, I think we can hear you. Do you wanna fill us in on the beginning of the school year?
Yeah, of course. So we started last week on Wednesday. The freshmen got settled in. They've been talking to a lot of upperclassmen, reaching out to them, and we're really like implementing that buddy system of you can come to us if you ever need anything. And I have noticed they definitely have come to us and it felt comfortable, which is very nice to hear. We are currently having our Spirit Week this week. Today was USA Day, and then tomorrow we have Dr. Forrest Day, and then we have Adam Sandler Day, and then our last day is going to be Have Rally, Spirit Day, and we're all wearing red and black. We'll do some fun games in the gym. And then I would just like to announce that this year I am the school Senate President.
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. So I'm very excited to fulfill that role and to have more of a higher up position in the Senate. I've loved it all 3 years, and I'm really excited to see what this year has to come.
That's wonderful. Thanks for the update, Dorothy. Did
Of course,
anybody,
no problem.
did anybody have any questions for Dorothy?
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations. All right, thank you so much for joining us.
No problem.
All right. Okay, well, I think we'll all look forward to meeting our new student rep, sounds like in October. Or maybe next meeting, next September meeting.
September.
Fabulous. That's great. Okay, communications and updates. Superintendent's report, Dr. Britton.
Okay, so, great start to the school year. I think everybody certainly appreciated the Wednesday school start with students as opposed to the Monday. So we started with convocation and 2 days of professional development, get everything ready, and then welcome students back Wednesday. All things considered, I think it went very well. Laurel, thank you for your remarks at convocation. I thought they were excellent and inspiring. Feedback I got on convocation was everybody enjoyed it. I thought that it was very productive and uplifting and a great way to celebrate the start of the school year. Of course, we went from that right into Power School training. Right? So, as you know, that's one of our big lifts this year. Is that a lot of our training time was taken up in learning that very important new system. But you know, the feedback I've gotten from everybody so far is it's exciting to learn. Everybody sees the potential for it, but certainly like anything else, it will present a learning curve. But we're off to a good start. So I want to make sure I extend appreciation to the entire leadership team who worked very hard to organize all of the PD and all of their back-to-school faculty meetings and have everything ready to go. They've spent a ton of time working to make sure that the facilities were well prepared to meet our teachers back. And even better, our students. So our students started on Wednesday. It was a great first week of school. We ran into a few hiccups this week, which we'll be sure to fill everybody in on. But aside from a few minor kind of bus route issues to work out and last minute details, it went very smoothly. We kind of picked right up, and I know that our teachers were very excited to see kids back in the buildings. I visited every school, and it's just awesome to have kids back. It's what it's all about. It's too lonely here in the summer, even though we have lots of summer programs going. See the buildings filled up again, it was great. So awesome start to the school year. I'm really excited to introduce our new teachers to you. So, a couple of ways I want to introduce them. First, I included all of their resumes, or sort of curriculum vitaes, in your board folder. So you can take a look at all of these new teachers, and you're about to see them in a moment here. I'm really impressed and pleased with the quality of the teachers that we attracted this year. A nice mix of new and veteran educators, which is really what you want, but some have come with great experience, all have come with impeccable backgrounds in education and appropriate certifications, and are now in our classrooms, and I believe are gonna meet with tremendous success. Now, one thing we do, and I don't think it's a violation of our hazing policy, but
Comes a little
it
close.
could potentially be, is as part of the new teacher orientation, we ask the new teachers to put together a video that introduces them. Now, I did this. I still think my video with my cohort was the best. Dylan was in it, although I keep getting some pushback when I say that. But Dylan was one of the facilitators of our new teacher orientation, did a wonderful job introducing them to Portland. Meg, thank you for the bus tour.
I loved it, and
Yeah,
a really
right.
enthusiastic and passionate group of people. It was really exciting.
It was awesome. We gave everybody a bus tour of town, and our local historian here pointed out all of the features and
It was
things.
fun.
It's just a great thing that we do. And then Dylan and Tracy Graff took it from there and helped facilitate the rest of the orientation up to and including what you're about to see, which is the video that they put together. So Dylan, you guys worked really hard on it. I'll let you introduce it, and then we'll let everybody see it.
So yep, this was the first year that Tracy Graff and I partnered up to do this. We took over for the previous person who used to do it. And every single year, like Dr. Britton said, it's kind of Portland tradition for the new hires to introduce themselves. They pretty much will come up with the idea themselves. We give them time and space to go through and do this. So this was one of the last things that they worked on. Jen, if you go to the next slide. And hit play. Now, a lot of what they put into this is specifically from the Barbie movie.
There you guys are. Come on, let's get on the bus.
seen the Barbie movie? Because I think a lot of that's lost on me. As a non-Barbie enthusiast, I don't know.
So those were the new teachers who worked, they came in 2 days early to do their new hire orientation. Like I said, they completely came up with the idea behind what to do. I think they were trying to decide between two, Barbie because of the Barbie movie, which I hadn't seen yet, so I didn't necessarily get all of the references, but from what they told me, it's pretty much the whole first part of the movie where they leave their Barbie world and come to the real world. Their other option was Taylor Swift Eras Tour, but this was the one that they most settled on.
The best part was the, oh, what's this, brownstone?
Well, the interesting thing, funny thing is that I'm not a historian of Portland, but I did tell them that they'll, after riding the bus tour of all the back roads of Portland, they would understand why we have snow days in Portland, when there's 2 inches of snow. And they all laughed. They were a great bunch, they were really a great audience, and we had a lot of fun.
So we're very excited to welcome them. We did show the video as part of Convocation too, so between Laurel's remarks, Sam's remarks, and that was, I think, the highlight. Wonderful speech. So welcome to our new teachers, and they have all hit the ground running. And Dan, if you have any questions, I included a little bit of information about each of them as they go take a look at their experience and their background. And I'm very grateful and excited that they're part of our community at this point. All right, so while we welcome some new folks in, we did also a few people, so I did include some resignations for you. So Kevin Cunningham, who's been with us for the past 10 years, is a science teacher here at the high school, has unfortunately taken a different position. We wish Kevin all the best of luck. I really enjoyed working with Kevin. He's a top-notch individual, a great teacher, and we're going to miss him, so wish Kevin best of luck. Also, Richard Thomas, he was with us for a short time. He joined us about halfway through last year as a math teacher at the middle school. He came to us after having been a math teacher at the Waterbury Arts Magnet School. He had the opportunity to go back there. I think there was a riff or something happened. So when he had the opportunity to go back, he did it. But he did a great job while he was here. As you know, we had that sort of early in the year resignation and struggled to fill it for part of the year. And he did a great job helping us pick up the pieces when he joined us later in the year. Send appreciation to him. I wish him all the best of luck back in Waterbury. And then we have 2 resignations from paraprofessionals, Margaret Buzak and Mary Murray. Both will be missed. I hope they'll come back to us at some point. They give you a little insight into some of the reasons they're going in terms of daycare, and then of course, Margaret took a position as a special education teacher. Wish them best of luck. And then Brenda Gebord, you may know she's a paraprofessional here at the high school. She hasn't left, she's changed roles. So she's now working in our tech department, but had served for I think 3 years with us here as a paraprofessional at the high school. So those are the new teachers and those are the resignations. Now, this is the first time since I've been your superintendent that I've got to make the following statement. And it feels really good. And you know how Stephanie says to you, we're on balance, the budget is balanced, but that's today at this moment, right? Because things change so quickly. So I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna knock on wood as I'm saying it, because I'll likely jinx us and get to my office tomorrow and find out that's changed. But I will tell you anyway. So despite the resignations, I am pleased to report that we are fully staffed with certified teachers, paraprofessionals, bus drivers, food service workers, administrators, administrative assistants, and fall coaches. Fully staffed.
Congratulations.
Right? Now, we always need more, right? To the extent that that isn't enough, but all of the positions contained in our budget are filled. Right now, that could change as of tomorrow, but for this moment in time, I'm happy to say that all of our positions are filled, even ones that have been historically very difficult to keep filled, like paraprofessionals and bus drivers, which is really nice. So I think that's a great reflection of our school and our community. You probably read in the newspaper many districts are struggling to find teachers. I'm grateful that we're not in that position and that we have everybody that we need in the classroom, on the fields, in our buses, in our cafeterias, in our offices, doing the very important work that we have ahead of us this year. I'll let you know if that changes.
That's great.
Okay. Let's see here. Oh, enrollment report. I did include this in your packet here. I just wanna caution you, I know particularly at the kindergarten enrollment, it's a little low. What happened was, a couple of parents didn't finalize their registration process in Power School, so that when this was kicked out, correct me if I'm wrong, there's still a couple that are in the works. So we'll provide a updated copy, at the second, meeting in September, and then the big one is that October 1 enrollment. So I think it's a little bit higher. So what we'll do is I'll give you we'll have this all straight, that's pretty close right now, I think we're off by maybe a half a dozen to a dozen students or so. We'll make sure those numbers are, because, you know, the October 1 enrollment is the most important one, that's the one we report to the state. We'll give you that one, and then Dave did ask me if we could get a comparison for years past. We'll include maybe the past 2 years and this year, so you can get a look at, you know, at this point, maybe it's time to, you know, put our demographic study to the test, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
And see if those projections that Peter Proudy gave us are bear improvement. I think they are. I think that, you know, he was predicting about a 5% increase. This is actually a little lower than we were last year, but I think when we get these numbers exactly dialed in, they'll be right on what I think Peter Proudy projected for.
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, it's just a simple, you know, box underneath it and last year, because I wrote them all in here manually, because I'm trying to, curious which grades
Yeah.
had shifts. You can see last year's 100 students went to the next year's next grade, and if there was a change significant.
Yeah.
I was kind of curious.
I'd be happy
The
to.
other thing I was gonna ask too is the open choice number too. Where can we put that someplace so it's visible this year versus last year? Not by grade, just in total. 'Cause
Yeah, I get you.
It's a false sense of security if we think the enrollment's staying flat, if we're increasing the open choice to cover peaks.
We'll make sure that those are on.
Thanks.
All right, okay, I just want, you probably are following in the news, and I just wanna put everybody's mind at ease. There's a labor action, a strike, taking place in Coventry and Bolton with M&J bus drivers in those communities. So, I was on the phone with M&J, you know, you got my attention with an email.
I know, I didn't mean to make you panic, sorry.
Yeah, pointed that out. Fortunately, that's not affecting us. Our labor agreements are in place here in Portland, and that is isolated to those two communities. So if you've been following the news and saw M&J, that's isolated to Portland and, Coventry and Bolton, and it's not affecting us. So certainly for those two communities, I hope they settle that soon and get their kids back on the road. I'm sure that is a tremendous disruption, but not one that we're experiencing here, or I anticipate we will experience.
Is transportation in place for all of our open choice students at this
Yes.
point?
Yeah, so that's done through Hartford, through Bristow, it's part of that, M&J doesn't provide. All right, you did receive in your packet a communication from Lou Perrin, right? So Lou dropped off a letter, to, the Board of Education and actually Laurel and Ron, so I did include this with you. I just want to clarify a couple of things. Lou references a vote of 7-0 with one abstention. That is accurate. So the committee did vote 7-0 with one abstention to approve the entire report. Right? The vote on some of the recommendations was more split, 5-3, specifically whether consolidating to 2 or consolidating to 1 elementary school was the preferred recommendation. But I just didn't want anybody to think that that vote was 7-0. That vote was actually 5-3. The entire report, though, was endorsed 7-0 with one abstention. And that's the one that I presented to you, and it's now on the website if anybody's curious about it. But Lou does share his concerns, and he's obviously invested 2 years of his life, and we worked very hard on this report, and he's very careful to see how it's going. So to that end, I want to give you an update. I did attend a recent Board of Selectmen meeting. I thought it was very informative. Lots of great questions, and one of the things that the Board of Selectmen has done is now pass a resolution to form a municipal buildings study committee, right? Which was one of the recommendations that came out of our facility study, and that was, hey, what do you do with a decommissioned school, specifically Gildersley? So our recommendation was for the Board of Selectmen to form a group to explore that, and they have done so, right? So I think at the end of our meeting tonight, Laurel is gonna talk to you about who will put on that committee. So it's gonna have one Board of Education member, I believe one Board of Selectmen members, and then some other community members. And if I were giving advice to anybody, I would suggest a commercial realtor. You know, some people in the field of what might happen would be a great cross-section of people. But the Board of Selectmen has asked for a Board of Education representative, and Laurel's gonna talk at the end of the meeting tonight about who that might be. Also tonight, Laurel and I joined Brian Curley, John Dillon, and Mike Hernandez. And we sat in on a presentation, correct me by Mike, what's the name of his vendor?
Great Blue.
Great Blue, right, Great Blue.
Great Blue
So,
Research.
Great Blue Research. This is a group that does some market studies and feedback gathering, that hopefully, you know, would go out, you know, for our facilities study, as a reminder, we do focus groups. We didn't do any broad, all Portland through the mail or social media or other electronic means to get feedback of everybody. It was, you know, we invited folks and people who chose to give up an evening and come join Lou and I appreciated, and that happened. And we got to about 180 or so people. This would be an effort more globally to get feedback from members of the community. And so Laurel and I just started learning a little bit about that today, but that was the other thing that was discussed at the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen both formed that committee and asked Ryan to go forward investigating some outside companies that might be able to come do that sort of market analysis and get feedback from the other 9,600 residents in the town, which is a few more than the 180 that we spoke to. So that's happening. We'll certainly keep you posted as things unfold, but I'm feeling like we're moving in the right direction.
What's the nature of the survey at this point? Was that discussed, what they're actually looking for answers about?
Not yet. So we haven't gotten nearly to that level of detail with questions or anything really. It was more of how this vendor, Great Blue, has done this in other communities and what their services consist of.
And they did reassure us, because Charles asked some really good questions about, you know, this would not look like sending out a survey that has a do you choose option A, option B, or option C. This would be an opportunity not only to get feedback, but to provide some information and education to folks in town about what the process has been and what the options look like. And to not just get a yes or a no,
So
or an either or an or. It would be,
More thoughtful.
it sounds like their approach is very thoughtful, so it was good to hear from them about what the process might look like if the town moves forward with exploring that. And it sounded like the Board of Education and Charles would have a voice in what that may look like.
Yeah, I don't wanna go back and have a survey that reinvents the wheel, because so much, we have done so much
Yes.
good work.
I think we would agree with that. I didn't get the impression, now, again, this was a sales pitch tonight.
Right.
Yeah.
And we have to understand, see it for what it
Right,
was.
right.
It was a sales pitch, but, I will say that the gentleman did a pretty good job. He's a salesman, he's got a product to
Right.
sell.
Yeah.
I have more questions, but, you know, at this point, I think we should keep an open mind.
Absolutely.
And if nothing else, you know, I did ask the gentleman, I asked him 2 questions. I said, have you done any post hoc analysis? Specifically, the census you've gathered, has that been reflected in voting patterns in subsequent referendums? And the response that I got from him was, yeah, 90%.
But it wasn't
Right,
90%
it
pass at a referendum, the
Right.
response is 90% move
Matched.
forward in the right
Right.
path
Right.
for what the information brought to them,
Correct.
right?
That
And
there was a
sometimes,
match.
and sometimes the answer is, from the survey data, is don't move forward with this, and Charles made a very good point. That's not an option for us.
Yeah.
That's not a path we're able to explore, we don't have that luxury.
Correct. And then, of course, you know, the other part of this is you know, more to come. I think that there likely will be other vendors that we might wanna get information about, but, this is something that, you know, ultimately, this is a Board of Selectmen, decision, and this will be something that I think they're looking to help inform the entire process and the work of this municipal building study committee. But the turnaround time of it, I heard somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 to 8 weeks, so let's just say it were to happen at the end of September, you know, I heard January would be a time where we would be getting some feedback and data that might inform both the work of the municipal studies committee and more broadly, raise awareness in the community, have a very important discussion started, and give us a sense of community input.
And I was glad to hear when this resolution was passed, that it's not just about Gildersleeve, they're gonna look at all the town buildings, all the use and whatnot. So this is a comprehensive over probably a couple of years. And I think that's a very smart thing that Portland is doing. So I love the idea of the municipal study committee. I'm open to the survey.
More to
And I'm
come.
really looking forward to seeing what information we can get.
I promise to keep you posted, more to come
Okay.
for sure.
All right, good.
My only concern with that is that we've heard all along in our meetings, prior meetings, from architects and everybody, that the biggest job is the marketing campaign
Mhm.
to sell this, and are they gonna be able to do it with a one-page flyer that says, read this and then answer all these questions?
Yeah, no, that's.
I don't know if I feel intelligent enough to say yes or no to whatever you're asking me with this little bit of information.
Interesting, we asked that question, because that
Did you?
was our big concern going in. And the only way I can describe it is there's a methodology in the sort of both quantitative and qualitative feedback you gather where you sort of suggest. And the question prompts or stems start with, while some people think this, others might think this.
Right.
Which group might you be inclined to support? Right, so it's not a yes or no or a Likert scale, it's more of a, hey, if this group of people is thinking this way and this group of people is thinking this way, and then nested within that is a bunch of information. You're not picking one or the other, you're giving feedback about which opinion you might be more likely to support.
Okay.
And he did describe too, which I thought was really interesting and helped me to be a little more open-minded about this, that he described that it's not just that they say, I like this option or I like this option, then there's follow-up to it that's, so what would it take to change your mind, essentially? What information would you need, what questions do you have, what do you feel uncertain about, so that you could, what would it take to get you to support it?
Yeah.
So I thought that it seems to me that it's very thoughtful in that it's meant to generate information for us beyond just people like this option. It's meant to help us know what questions our community has so that we can bring more people on board. So,
Yeah, I guess after listening to John, and I know I always filter on, this is a salesperson trying to sell a
Yeah,
product, but
sure.
I came out of that feeling a little better than I did going in.
Mm.
My mind is open, and I think that that's a good place to be.
Mhm. Good.
Do you have something?
Yeah, I just had a question to go back to the facilities, to the group that the Board of Selectmen created. And I remember one of the comments I heard during that meeting was that the town hall was included into that survey or into that study at the request of the Board of Education. Did I hear that correctly? Was that? You heard that too, right? Okay, it wasn't just, it really, I was like, oh, really? Why the heck would we wanna do that? It just seems like, why are we throwing in another issue that would divert us off our path to figure out what's best for the school system? That doesn't ring a bell for you?
I wasn't at that meeting because I was
The
camping in the
resolution.
woods, but I
Yeah,
I had no
resolution.
Wi-Fi. But I think that from conversations prior to this with Ryan and to the conversation at the Board of Selectmen in the previous meeting, my feeling was that if there was going to be a committee, and this is what I was hearing from others and from Ryan too, that if there was going to be a committee looking at Gildersleeve and if they were also going to look at Brownstone, just to explore what options are out there, what possibilities there might be, that it made sense to take a look at how other town facilities are being used. Because, I guess to inform, is there a use? Can the town use Brownstone in a different way? You can't necessarily answer that question if you're not looking at what town department needs are, how other spaces are being used.
I've heard, in a couple conversations, people have said, like, oh, well, gee, wouldn't it be wonderful if we turn Brownstone into a town hall complex and bring in all, I just think that would be so crazy expensive to try and add to a plan to try and address our significant school facilities issues. It would make it really hard for people to come down on that. It just feels like it expands it beyond what it should. I think the Board of Selectmen did a really good job in how they narrowed that committee to ensuring that they report on Gildersleeve quickly, because I think it was John Dillon who addressed that.
mentioned that
And,
too.
yeah, and
That
it
was
was
smart.
it was very good that we because otherwise, you don't ever accomplish anything. The timeline becomes forever instead of like 2 months or 5 months or whatever.
And
it
he's right,
is.
you know, there was consensus, there was absolute consensus on this body, I think on the Board of
Yeah.
Selectmen, certainly on the Facility Steering Committee, that decommissioning Gildersleeve is, I mean, we have to go in that direction. So you're right.
Yeah, well,
being
we
able
certainly need to
explore that
understand what
and
the
report back on
right,
it
yeah,
is
what are the
yeah.
ramifications, because that to me is the primary issue. You can load a lot of other stuff on there that you want, but what would we do and what would be the options? And I think it was interesting, your thing, Charles, with the 3 million versus 900,000, you know, that was,
Found that out that day. like
yeah,
the
it
day
was,
before.
you know, it was important to sometimes people throw numbers out, and like, well, what's the validity behind that number, so.
Right, so Tim, I would answer your question, Doug. I didn't hear them say, at the request of the Board of Education, maybe it's something I missed. But I would suggest, I don't think that the Board of Education has taken a position or requested anything at this point.
No, there's
It's
just been a
really,
lot of
Mm.
conversations.
yeah, it's the Facility Study Committee that has recommended forming this
Right.
committee.
Right.
So maybe they were saying Board of Education when they were supposed to be saying Facility Study Committee, but, to date, the Board of Ed hasn't taken a position yet. I think we're kind of.
Well, that's what, yeah, that was my head, where I was, as I heard that and thought about that, is I didn't think we had taken that position, so, yeah. that's
I
good.
think we've just had a lot of conversation and a lot of questions.
Oh, sure,
here,
yeah.
With Ryan, with the
Yeah.
Board of Selectmen, and I think that's kind of the path we're on at the
And I
moment.
also think that the fact that we were going to be sharing space with the town in the brownstone configuration,
Who-
that may have led to, well, let's see what other departments need and if there's other uses of the basement or whatever that we were going to share. So it was just kind of conversation. I don't think there was anything in the resolution.
But all in all, I think we're in a good spot, which
We
is
are.
this municipal building study committee has been formed. I think the purpose is pretty succinctly laid out with which facilities to take a look at. I think that, the conversation now is about the potential for a vendor to do this market analysis for us, and I'm continuing to work on the Ed Specs plan, which all lines up. But
And we talked about it briefly at at our retreat a few weeks ago, but not everybody was there. We had an excellent visit, at the South Windsor schools, and the superintendent there, who spent a considerable amount of time with us that day, giving us a tour of the facility and answering a whole lot of questions. And it was really interesting to hear from somebody who's gone through that process.
she said she hasn't slept in 10 years.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
so they've had some unique
Yes, they have.
population explosion related challenges that we do not face. And they've managed to successfully, they're completing their 4th school right now, which is wild to imagine. But it's, one of the big takeaways, and there were many, one of the big takeaways is being in one of their newer schools and seeing everything that they were able to accomplish, staying within the budget that worked for state reimbursement for them. So they didn't go wild spending all the money on all the things they wanted. They stayed within the reimbursement rate and within that square footage allotment, and they have a beautiful school facility. And it was
all
really,
unique.
it
They're
was
all
really
unique, too.
encouraging and thinking that, we can do that. We'll be able to do that here.
Their schools are not cookie cutter schools either. They're all very uniquely looking, so, that was kind of an interesting thing as well. But, yeah,
It was a good visit.
was a good visit.
And to that end, the imperative of getting our facilities has never been more apparent than it has been today, tomorrow, or likely Thursday. So, today we dismissed Valley View, Gildersleeve, and Brownstone early. I've announced we're gonna dismiss Valley View, Gildersleeve, and Brownstone early tomorrow, and very likely Thursday as the heat wave is here. We're talking, somewhere low 90s temperature and the dew point. It's really though, it's called a heat index. Right? Heat index is a calculation that considers humidity and temperature. And the number we look at is generally 95. When it closes in on 95, we get nervous. When it's at or above 95, the conditions in our buildings are just unbearable. Particularly under that slate roof on the 2nd floor at Brownstone. It's
not safe.
bad. It's really bad. I do want to recognize, of course, these are very difficult decisions. They're made very much in consultation with the leadership team, the Auburn Facilities Department, our medical advisors, and none of us like giving up any instructional time ever under any circumstances. So it's painful. It's an incredible disruption for our families, and it's not good for teaching and learning. It certainly illustrates the importance, I think, of everything we're talking about. Every day, I feel like we're hearing record-setting something, whether it's rainfall or heat or something. And as we know, our facilities were built in an age that had different concerns about weather, climate, school security, and things than we do now. The reality, the imperatives here, we need to catch up and design some facilities for future generations, so future superintendents don't have to worry about heat or monsoon rains or school security issues the way we do. I apologize to anyone who's affected by this. I promise you these decisions are not made lightly, and only in the best interests of our students. So that's where we are.
All right. Is there anything else in your report? That was it. All right, thank you, Charles. Any questions for Charles at this point? Okay. Then we'll move on to our Director of Student Services. Dawn, nice to see you.
Hi, good evening, everybody. It's good to see everybody. I have a very quick report. I did not get into, if you can take one past the room, I did not get into the packet that you got earlier, but keep it very short and sweet, I promise. Are we still using the microphone?
Yes, please. Thank you.
I apologize to you guys for speaking to your back.
Thank you.
Just give you a quick census for where we are right now. Like Charles said earlier, the numbers are still fetting out because of late registrations, late announcements, or late notification that some of our students that are coming to us new have IEPs, and also some of our students that have left, making sure their IEPs travel with them to their next district. So I just put into a comparison between where we were in June and where we are right now. So our numbers, our overall census for special ed, students identified with special ed needs having an IEP went from 275 at the end of the school year to 273 to start the new school year. I've been speaking about our higher numbers, and that worries me because usually we have quite a dip starting in the fall and then we build again. So we've had many students move into district with IEPs, and we've also had not many kids move out. Now, a little piece of that, remember, is that we have 8 students in transition that in other years would have just left us and gone on to other programming or gone into outplacement. So those students are still in our list as well. Everything else is pretty much the same as it was in June. There's a little bit of movement. We have 2 more students in magnet schools that require special ed services. Remember, we support our students that go to Quaker or Hartford magnets with special ed support and or services through a 504 plan. So we have a couple more students in that category. And our 504 plans are down a little bit. And our EL students, this is a really rough estimate because our EL teacher is working really hard right now to make sure she captures identification of anybody coming in new, to make sure we do that screening, the loss screening, and find out who qualifies or doesn't qualify. We did have a number of students exit EL status at the end of last year based upon their score on the lost links, but it was a small number. It was 4 out of 55. So we're looking to see what happens when everything settles. So we're in a good place. I will tell you the one thing that's keeping me up at night as a special ed director. There's lots of things that keep me up at night, but the one that kept me up the worst this last week when I was looking at our numbers is our numbers in pre-K. And I warned you a little bit last year, our pre-K numbers are huge. We right now have 31 students in our special ed programming for our children ages 3 to 5. 31 students, that's a huge amount. We have 4 sections, and we really try and keep those numbers capped down low so we've got a good adult-child ratio. So that one does worry me. Now the good news is our kindergarten numbers are very low. We have 3 students identified with IEPs in kindergarten. However, we know that's also subject to changes. Kids come in that may not have had any historical evaluation or assessment of their needs, and this is their first experience with a public program or a formal program. So we may have some more numbers come out. But you see the disparity between 31 students at the ages of 3 to 5 and 3 for those students that are in kindergarten. So we'll continue to watch those carefully, but I know I mentioned last year, partway through the year, our numbers were growing. And these are the end of our COVID babies that were home for some of our kids missing out on a whole 2-3 years of programming that they might have done otherwise if it weren't for, you know, the COVID shutdown and the following years after that. So we'll watch closely, but I you know, keeps me up at night. I want to share it with you, so keep you up at night a little bit.
Can I just,
That being said, staffing updates, I agree with Dr. Britton. Do you have a question?
I had a question,
Oh, sorry.
just on, I'm trying to get the numbers. Here it says pre-K and is 37 students. Are you saying the 37, that 31 of those students are IEP students? I just want to understand, because you're throwing age ranges along instead of grade level.
We got
That was-
37 on another page, Dawn, on the
We have
grade.
Oh,
37.
yes, great question, but remember, that 37, that includes our typical peers. That's not just our kids with IEPs, that's our typical peers.
What's my point? So is it 31 of 37, or is it?
31 out of 37 kids have IEPs,
Okay.
yeah. But that's a good question.
I'm curious what kind of increase you generally see with pre-K over the course of the school year, and if you feel like, given that average increase, we have enough room in the existing pre-K configuration.
It's hard to say, because it's not the same ebb and flow that we see like in 2nd and 3rd grade, where we do a lot of identification for things like reading disabilities and dyslexia that can tend to hit at that age range. Preschool, it really varies on who's out there. The one given is we're always adding to our preschool roles throughout the
I
year.
think that's what I mean.
Yeah, because we have a rolling admission. When a child turns 3, we go right to their program on their 3rd birthday. So it rolls that way. I haven't done a close analysis yet of what's in the birth to 3 files coming up in the next, for the next 12 months. Usually I do that after October 1, and I take a look at, because then we know who's settled in at pre-K, and then we look at that. But I'm not as nervous about the birth to 3, what's in the queue right now, as I was last year.
Okay.
Because it's not, remember too, it's not just the nature of, we have X number of students with disabilities, it's the nature of their disabilities. I walked down Jessica's hallway the other day and there's a walker, there's 2 wagons for kids that are not mobile. There's a lot of adults in those 2 classrooms for all 4 sections this week, if we ever get to meet in the afternoon. But there's a lot of adults there, and those adults are there because the kids' needs are so intense. We have a child that can't walk, can't talk. They really need a one-to-one adult to help them do all of those activities of daily living before we even think about school. So it's an intensity, in addition to the number of students, it's an intensity of needs. Right now we have a very unique need level in our students. So it is something to keep an eye on. But I will be after, I know who's in the pike for like August and September, but I have to look more closely at what's coming up, because that will make a difference. And sometimes parents might have a child that's in the birth to 3 process, or they're involved with birth to 3, but they're gonna decide to do something differently for their first year of preschool. Sometimes, especially children that are on the autism spectrum, some of our families decide to use their insurance and to access like full day ABA type of programming instead of sending their children right to preschool in the public school. So it's not a straight line, but it's enough, like I said, it's enough of a bubble for me to say, everybody listen up, we gotta be careful, we gotta see what's gonna happen. So.
This may be a follow-up question, maybe a question for you as well. Like, I know, maybe we talked about it at the retreat, and I know you brought it up before, that we have like, is it 14% identified, or 14 is the state average, and we're around 16% of our student population identified as IEPs. Is there funding available for a district when it starts edging that direction? Because it looks like this year we're probably going to increase in that percentage.
Not really. Where the funding lies is more as if we get out of compliance with the state, and it's more like corrective type of thing. But as far as, we have excess cost funding.
Right.
Our IDEA allotment is based upon our number of students and our population, our percentage. But as far as like other funding, it would be more private grants and things like that that we might pursue. But I think proactively, the most important thing that we're doing, and I didn't bring it with me, but let me grab this. As a district, I think we need to look carefully at our practices, because is it truly in a higher special education need, or is it that we've got so focused in the last 3 years on making sure we meet kids where they are and move them along? Are we over-identifying or overusing resources and things like that? So we used some grant funding this summer, and we bought this book for all of our certified staff in student services. And it's a good text. It's Reimagining Special Education. And it's looking at special education through an equity lens and also through the lens of reviewing our practices. You know, we have, you know, and I've been doing this for longer than most people in the department. We have things that we do just because that's the way we've always done them. But this is a time to really look at that. So, but and of course we access any funding that's out there and any funding that's available.
So that's a great question. I appreciate you asking it, and you bringing up that book, because that was where I was headed in my mind with the question. Is that, you know, so you have that book that you have shared with folks over the summer, and so what's the next step for? Because we're not, according to the statistics, we're an outlier in terms of our number of students identified for IEPs or special ed. So what's the next step? Where do you go with that to figure out now?
So there's a couple different avenues, and we're not a severe outlier. I mean, we're for the first time we've piked up there, but we can easily pike back down. I feel with, you know, with the next year to come. The purpose of the book was just to again look at our practices, but then the next step is looking at everything that we're doing through student services through that lens of, are we doing it with the best efficacy? Our tier 1 and tier 2 interventions, because when you think about it, you think of a class of, like, and I'm gonna pick on, I'm gonna pretend a class, let's say 8th grade, if we have 28% of 8th grade is identified as special education, what is the other part of, you know, there's a lot of resources that we're trying to get, or a lot of work we're trying to get squeezed out of a few amount of resources. The reality is everybody's gotta be working with those kids that are identified and making sure that we're not having to identify more, because that's the track we're going down. So it's looking at our tier 1 and tier 2 intervention, and I think that's something that Ms. Lawson and Chuck Hirschon are doing very carefully to make sure that they're getting that programming in place, advocating for people like reading specialists and math specialists that work with all kids, not just the students that have an IEP. Also looking at carefully how are we allocating, or why are we allocating one-to-one or additional adults in classrooms? What's the purpose? Right. So some of that structure, so we're working with a rubric of how to do that. One of my biggest questions I also have for our special ed teachers is when they sit down with a student and the parent and the report, and they're identifying a student, and they're saying, you need reading support. How do we get to those numbers? Is it based upon the class structure, that they need, you know, an hour a week or 3 hours a week? How are we getting to that? And I want us to look as a district more carefully how we're doing that. So it's a multifaceted, and we're gonna read this together through it with our department. We're gonna read it through the, together this fall. I'm really not mean, I don't give books to read over the summer.
I must have misunderstood, my apologies.
No, I'm not like that. Well, 3/4 of our special ed staff worked here for summer school anyhow, so
Right.
2 weeks off. But the reality though is I want us to read this together and really look at our, and use this as a discussion point to look at our practices.
That's great. Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So, staffing, you know, Dr. Britton shared that we are fully staffed, and I will tell you, the beginning of July, my heart started to go flutter. By the end of July, I'm talking with Ms. Lawson, and both of our hearts are doing more than a flutter, because we lost several good special ed teachers. Places like Glastonbury gained our really good special ed teachers. We met informally, and Dr. Britton met formally with each of them as they left to do some sort of an exit interview to find out, you know, why they were going. Some of our special ed teachers actually left public school and went into the private sector. I mean, so it's a variety of reasons. I think we had good discussions, but it did put us at a point where we were really, really nervous, because we had to fill the new position we had created at the high school, which that is wonderful. We have manageable caseloads now with our high school teachers, our high school special ed case managers. But we also, then in addition, we had 2 more high school teachers leave, And then we were also backpedaling because we had to fill a Valley View position. And the pool of special ed teachers is not very deep. There's not a lot of people out there. So I am ecstatic that we have the people we have in place, and everybody is working hard. We have some highly experienced, and we have some very new, eager to learn teachers in place. So we have, as an administrative team, we have our work cut out for us to help them become as the Portland best they can and support our students. But as we know, this is a department, this is an area of extreme shortage across the state. So the fact that we're able to start the new year and fully staffed is great. Paraprofessionals, we've had some last minute resignations. Ms. Lawson pulled one of them away to become a teacher. So we fill those as they come up. But the good news is there's a lot of people, and I really have to credit to our ESS partner, because they quite often have people in the pipeline that really want to work here, that are working as subs, and when they know we have an opening are eager to apply. So we're excited about that. So that was the update about staffing. And
Can I stop you for 1 minute?
Sure.
I just had a question about caseload numbers. When you say it's better at the high school, just to try to get an understanding of your losing sleep regarding the pre-K, you say 4 sections. Am I correct? That's 2 teachers carrying a caseload of 31 between 2, so you're talking 15, 16?
it is, but it's not, because at the early childhood level, the speech pathologist has a lot of students that she case manages, because they're what we call speech only. So she's covering many of them. And then Caitlin Izzo, she's our special ed teacher in the ABA lab, she also covers several of those students. So it's not a quick divide of 15 or 16 between the 2 pre-K teachers. It is spread out. So, but that's a great question, yeah. I mean, it doesn't mean I'm not losing sleep over it, but it is shared a lot better that way. And the really nice thing I have to say about our Valley View team is they do a beautiful job of that multi-tier or multi-discipline approach. So it's not that this is your kid or your kid, these are our kids, and they really rally around them nicely. So yeah, but again, we're not done. We still have, I've got 2 more kids in the pipeline that just got identified a few weeks ago that are going into pre-K. So there's, the numbers are gonna continue to move up. So I will be reporting on that probably monthly to everybody as I get to see what's coming up through Birth to 3. But yeah, I wanna keep our preschool teachers because they do a beautiful job, and I don't wanna overwork them, so we'll keep
So
an eye
then how
on
does that compare to like those high school caseload numbers, like across the board? Did the high school, did that help by adding that?
It did.
Teacher, and it's kind of
It did.
equivalent across all the grades now?
Yep, and Ms. Lawson was really instrumental in making sure the caseload was spread out nicely, and
We were heading north of 25 for each high school case manager. Then when we added the position, we were able to take it back down to 16 or 17.
so that's a big help. Critical. And it also puts more special ed support pushing into the classroom. Because remember, every time we take a child out of the regular classroom and put them in a resource or a self-contained classroom, we widen that distance between them and the gen ed trajectory. So we're always looking to tighten that up. Our transition program is up and running. We have a snafu that we're working on right now. We were able to get a new van, which is beautiful, and we have that van with the purpose of being able to drive our transition students back and forth to jobs, and it's a small van, so it's a regular van like, I drove when I was a soccer mom years ago. So it seats six passengers plus the driver. But what we didn't realize, or the issue that we had, is we knew we were going to be training our staff to drive the van, because who better to be driving the van than somebody in the program. But ironically, even just to drive a regular van when you're carrying school children, you have to go through a vetting process. There's a physical, there's driver training, and then there's a test to get what they call a W endorsement on their license. So we're in the process of getting that done. We're working with M&J, but unfortunately with summertime, we weren't able to start the process earlier, so we're just starting that process now. So a little slow starting up. The kids are coming in every day, it's just they're not, we're having to use transportation services from M&J until we get everybody licensed. But even myself, Olivia in my office, because she loves to get her fingers into things, we're all getting the endorsement on our license, so we can pitch in and help out you know, we're short-staffed or something like that. So if you see me driving the van, just wave. It says Portland Public Schools on the side.
Do you have a sense of the timeline on when that snafu will be resolved?
It should be a couple more weeks. Like, everybody's getting their physicals this week and next week, and then, the driving class isn't that long, so we should have it rectified in a couple more weeks. I did ask M&J to set us aside a van out of Farmington that could kind of be ours for the day, for these days in between until we get up and running. So, okay.
I have one more question. I heard that we are hiring subs as paras in the preschool program. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. I'm just wondering, do you foresee this need like coming to personnel committee and the board in the future of hiring full-time for those roles?
I think so.
Okay.
One of the things that we are doing right now is we're going slow because we want to have the dust settle and see what we need. Because the other piece is we can't have too many adults in there. You know, we know what a child looks like on paper, but do we really need to have, you know, as many adults in the room as there are children? Because then it just becomes really cumbersome that way. So we're kind of letting that go for a little bit. You will never hear John Davis say, we don't need more more paras, because I always, you know, it's when we brought all this programming back into district and keeping our kids here, that also means that's the biggest thing we need as adults. But of course, we're very mindful of the fact that we have a budget that we're trying to stay within. So we're also looking at other sources, some of our grant funding. You know, if we don't need to put the other piece that's very variable for our spending is purchase services. So things like outside testing or outside programming when I have to bring a specialist in because we don't have somebody trained to do something with a student. Those kind of things. That number changes every year. It's really hard to budget that. I kind of budget based upon what I spent the year before, but it's kind of like your household budget. You never know when, you know, you're going to have a different medical bill you weren't expecting. So, but as we see what we're spending on that too, we'll be able to know, can we take, you know, some bring another para in out of that money or something. So we're being very cautious because this is the tightest year for me since I've been here, and it's it's really because ESSER money's gone away, and also you know, we trimmed everything out of my budget, instructional supplies and purchase services. So what I'd love to be able to trim that more to hire more paras right now. It would leave us, you know, it would leave me back here on my knees in 3 months going, please, 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 we need this for something else. Yeah, and I, like I said earlier too, the nice thing is we're getting some really good paras that are coming out of ESS. So they start out working for ESS for a period of time. Yeah, it was great this summer. I got a couple college kids that came and worked for us that we didn't even know, and some of them we've actually hired this year, and a couple more are going to stay on working with ESS and come back and work during breaks. So keeping that pool filled up is nice. And then, yeah, so I think I touched on everything. The last bullet I had there was just about our preschool numbers. So I just wanted you to, you know, just be aware of that. So, any other questions for me tonight?
Thank you.
If you have any questions, you always know where to find me.
Thank you so much, Dawn.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right. We are going to move to new business. The first item under new business is first reading on a new policy for the Board of Education. This is policy 6163.1, selection of school library materials. This comes to you from the policy committee.
It does.
You worked very hard on it.
Yeah.
And you're welcome for it.
And you're welcome. No, I only meant it has the support of the policy committee.
That was a great meeting. We rolled up the sleeves and did it. I mean, so just a little background. For those of you who are on the policy committee, you may not know the entire process. As members of the Connecticut Association of Boards of Education, we get does it come in? Probably 4 or 5 times a year.
Quarterly.
Quarterly,
With
right.
a final in
Update.
July.
And the updates often reflect new state statutes, legislation, both federal and state, that need to be updated and reflected in our policy, or just suggestions, like say, hey, you know, based on things we're seeing in the state or nationally, these are some policies that districts have run into trouble with, and you might want to be mindful of them. you know, as the policy committee gets together, the ones that are most important to us are those that are required, right? Those that reflect changes to state law go right to the top of the list. And then we work our way down through some of the other suggested ones, and some ones the policy committee looks at and says, yeah, thanks, we're good with what we have, or we don't need that. But this is one that caught our eye. We currently do not have a policy that articulates for our community how all of the resources in this library and all of our building libraries are selected. We thought it was a good discussion to have. We did engage the library media specialists in all of our buildings and asked for their input, which we've been working on this for probably 3 or 4 months now. And
We have been.
Yeah, it's been a number of meetings, yeah.
they came back with some ideas, and what you see here is the CABE model policy that we edited up to, I think, reflect some of our Portland unique things. It wasn't a lot of changes, but some wordsmithing here and there. So I'm pretty comfortable with it. Policy committee members, do you have anything you want to add to
No,
it?
I thought it was a good collaborative effort, and we did consult with, and we're aware of issues on a national and also on a state level. And this is our insurance policy, that we know how we are selecting the materials, that they are curricular and leisure reading materials, and there's a process when there are complaints or challenges, or people are interested in what our kids are reading.
I think, I would just add that it keeps it simple. It's a necessary policy in this day and age, and this keeps it simple and grounded.
Yep.
And
it reflects current practice.
And it
Just puts
reflects
it-
current
puts it into
practice,
writing,
right.
so that it's
Right.
available for the public.
right.
And it was a good.
Hey, this wasn't the policy you're here for. It was the research study, right?
Right.
I'm sorry. I thought I got one ahead. It was Alicia that helped us with this, not you. Sorry.
Yes.
I got
That was my focus and you asked me a question. I
Right.
know.
I didn't know if you wanted to- I didn't know if you wanted to add
I'm on it.
anything. I didn't know if you wanted to add anything to this.
And it sounds like we already have a policy
Yeah.
for the complaints related to sections.
We do.
We do, although, just in, full transparency, the committee intends to revisit that policy. We've looked over it, we've identified some language in there that we need to tweak. We felt like it was important to pass this, get this through the board first, with the intention of then referencing this new policy in the 13-12 when we clean it up, if that makes sense.
It does. That's what they're doing.
So it's just first reading. I don't see any reason to rush it through tonight. We can.
No,
Right, no,
absolutely
it's,
not, just, if there's questions or feedback or typos or anything like
I'm
that.
curious, at the end of the legal references to contents of textbooks and future textbooks, does this policy cover textbooks or only library materials?
This covers library materials, collection of library materials. There is a second recommended policy that CABE has available about the selection of textbooks, and historically, this board has opted not to explore that as a policy.
I was confused as to
Yeah.
why that was referenced.
Because
That's-
sometimes
As a
library
matter-
materials are curricular materials, the teachers would be pulling library books, or
As
books
a-
that would be perceived as books on our library shelves.
I'm just curious, as a matter of practice, would we, because we don't have that policy, would we just not list that, or do we still leave that? Because there is a policy out there somewhere that
We
we.
took
It's
the
a-
reference to that policy out of this document, remember, those are just the legal references. and
Right,
I
the
have-
legal
Statutes.
references, right, that's what I'm
Yeah,
referring to,
statutes.
is the
Yeah.
legal references. If we don't actually have that, then do we need to
Because
not
the
state
state
it?
statutes govern the contents of textbooks and other general instructional materials, so if you went back to.
Yeah, so that would,
1018A,
yeah, that would be, yeah, it would be relevant.
Right.
It would be
And there's
relevant,
probably
yeah.
more in
It's-
there than-
Right, yeah, no, you're right, yeah, it would be
So
relevant.
those legal references came to us from CABE with
They
their
did.
draft of the policy, and in general, our practice has been to
Leave them.
keep the references, because
Yeah.
it just,
Right.
it protects the board.
Mhm.
Any other questions about this policy or thoughts? Is everyone comfortable taking a second read, and we'll look at this at our next meeting? Alright, sounds good. Then, in that case, if there's no more questions, we'll move on to item B, which we will ask Kate up. This is the high school AP Stats research study.
Sorry,
And I
Kate, I was
believe-
confused. I mixed the two up in my brain.
And I believe Eric is with us online too, and I'm sure he'll wanna chime in.
So I'll introduce this briefly, and then I'll turn it over to Kate or Eric or whomever wants to
Eric first.
address it. Eric go first. So, you know, you have a board policy that requires the Board of Education to take action and approve any, research that's done in our schools. This is an opportunity that we have to have our AP statistics class here at the high school engage in a sort of research study in collaboration with, what you're reading about here, the principal investigator, and kind of lays out how it's done. I know Eric brought this to the curriculum committee, and otherwise I'll let Eric and Kate briefly introduce it, explain it, answer any questions, and if you're comfortable with it, I did email you a motion tonight, but it would need to be approved by the board before we can move forward.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Eric.
Thank you for understanding why I couldn't be there tonight due to a family scheduling conflict. I'll try to keep this as quickly as short as possible. As Dr. Britton said, we did already bring this before the Board of Ed Curriculum Subcommittee, and so I'll give kind of the highlights of what we're asking, and this was included in the board packet. So AP Statistics is a course that we offer at the high school. We've offered that course for several years. It's currently taught by Don Brecklin, and Mr. Brecklin makes use of a textbook. I don't want to get the name wrong. It is called Practice of Statistics, or it's referred to as TPS in the AP world, and it's an established standard textbook for that course. As is the case with many newer textbooks, our use of that textbook came with access to a digital platform that allowed students to do additional practice and take online assessments that were aligned to the textbook. The publisher of the textbook is Macmillan. They're a big publishing house. We purchased several textbooks across different content areas from Macmillan, and Practice of Statistics is one of them. Macmillan has created a newer version of the digital platform that accompanies the textbook. That new platform is called Achieve, and the intent behind that new digital platform is that it still aligns to the textbook, but it creates for students what they're billing as a more authentic experience with AP statistics like they may see at university level within college credit-bearing courses. And so it has the possibility for providing our students a more authentic college experience within an AP course that's important because it ends with an exam that is college credit bearing, and if you practice like you play, there stands a greater chance that our students, through use of the digital platform, this newer revamped digital platform, could find increased success on the AP exam. What Achieve is looking for is established textbook partners, which we are, to beta test this platform. Mr. Brecklin is interested in beta testing the platform. They've sent us a proposed research study agreement that I included in the board packet, and I'll just quickly go through the stipulations of the agreement. So teachers who agree to use Achieve with students throughout the school year are responsible for completing 2 surveys of 8 to 10 minutes each. This is the teacher only. To complete a bi-weekly log, just logging frequency of use for their students. To participate in 2 30-minute interviews, and to allow a researcher to observe one of their classes. Additionally, the teacher is asked to share records of their students with consent from the parent, and those records would be limited to student names, student first name and last initial, which is what we've been told, no other identifying information, and then their usage records and their what they're terming attendance records with the online platform. So how often did they log in versus the expectations that they've logged in, and once they've logged in, what did their practice look like? Additionally, with parental consent and with student consent, students can offer their feedback of the platform, but they're under no obligation to do that. If the parent or guardian of students enrolled in the class says, no, I don't want any information collected on my child, and I don't want them to participate in the feedback surveys, the student can still use the platform. They still have access to the platform for practice. Their information just will not be collected and used for the purposes of research. In the agreement, they are pretty upfront. There are clear benefits of being in the study. It helps Macmillan to deliver a better platform to partnering schools, of which we're one. But there is some risk, and they are upfront. They're saying, you know, we adhere to student data privacy laws, we collect this information securely, but like any information collected online, it is subject to any type of data breach that would be beyond, you know, their security or our security. You know, you can't plan for those kind of things necessarily, but unfortunately they happen. In reviewing all of that, Principal Lawson and I are both of the opinion that it's worthwhile for Mr. Brecklin and for our students to participate in this study. We're further buoyed by the fact that students don't really have to participate if they choose not to. And Mr. Brecklin is adamant that this is a valuable tool that will help him to deliver better instruction and better prepare our students for AP exams. There's really nothing in the research study agreement that raised any red flags for us. In presenting it to the curriculum subcommittee, we did not hear any objections or concerns beyond anything, you know, of, like I said, kind of calculated risk, although that even kind of oversees a little bit from the subcommittee. So we're asking the board tonight, within the motion, to approve participation in the research study under the stipulations of the agreement that, again, Mrs. Lawson and I have found no objection to. And I'm happy to take any questions on that, or Kate, if you had anything else to add.
I think the only thing that I would add, part of my recommendation and consideration for this is the example that it sets for our students as critical thinkers, giving feedback and getting an understanding of what research is about and how it's done properly and safely, and in an opportunity as they move to the collegiate level for thinking about participating in research. It's a really nice, safe training ground.
I have one question, Eric or Kate. Do we know if part of the safe transmission of digital data involves encryption of data?
It is an encrypted student platform.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry.
And I
So
did
far
run
from my
it.
league.
We did run this also by our IT department to ensure compliance with data privacy and any encryption concerns.
Okay.
I don't want to leave this out. This is not Mr. Brecklin's motivation. The study offers a $750 honorarium for each participating instructor. I will only go so far as to say, like most teachers everywhere and almost all of our Portland high school teachers, they pour their own money constantly into supporting high quality instruction. And so I have no objection to Mr. Brecklin receiving a $750 honorarium as participation in the study, but I think if it was, you know, free, he'd look to participate in it, knowing Don, he would probably even pay it out of his pocket to participate if it was to the benefit of students.
He's the principal investigator, correct? He's responsible for stripping all of the personal information?
No, the principal investigator is Milliman, so Mark, it's on the top of the.
The principal investigator is the one on the publishers end leading the research study, and it does say, I'm looking at the agreement now, that is the individual responsible for stripping personal information from the data prior to sharing it with any other members of the research team. So they have some internal control mechanisms to further protect student privacy.
Any other questions for Eric or for Kate?
I guess I'm only curious about what the researcher, what the intent of observing one of the classes. Like, would it be that they want to see them interacting with the platform at that time? Or is it more about the instruction? I'm just curious what
So the platform is not instruction based. You know, Don doesn't teach over the platform. I think to your first point, it's to see how students are interacting with some of the tools, the features, the amount of time that they're spending on certain practice examples, where they may be getting stuck. You know, I'm guessing they're looking at everything from what they click or don't click to cursor movements to time spent on problems. We don't really, we haven't been given detailed information about the research that they're seeking, but other than to say it's about the usefulness and the effectiveness of the platform from the end user experience.
Thank you.
On that point, do you think that their behaviors would be different because they know they're being monitored? In other words, their length of time on the
course they
site,
will.
things of that nature?
That's a great question. You know, as Don kind of explained it to me, this has been a standing expectation in his AP Stats course that they've been interfacing with the previous iteration of the platform. So much so that if you said, listen, if the board for whatever reason rejected the research study, that's fine. We would just continue to use the platform in the way that we've always used it. You know, the version 1.0, if you will. So I think teacher expectations answer that question more than participation in a research study, and Don's pretty consistent with his expectations for student performance.
Good.
Anything else? No? Hearing no other questions, is there a motion to recommend to the Board of Education the approval of the research study of the implementation of Achieve at Portland High School?
I'll make a motion. Do you want me to read it? Do you want me to read it?
Go for it.
To recommend the Portland Board of Education the approval of the research study of the implementation of Achieve at Portland High School.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Stacy and Sarah. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. It's unanimous. Thank you. All right. Item C, allocation of ESSER funds.
All right, so I hate to end the meeting on a bad note, but this has been discussed with the personnel committee. It's the first time that the full board is hearing it. So I want to give everybody the bad news. We received notification, boggles the mind, at the end of August from the Connecticut State Department of Education that they've reduced our SAKE grant, School Improvement Grant, by $200,000. Not helpful, not appreciated, and you know, did share those frustrations with the State Department of Education. And you know, their reasons for doing it is that we received the promised $350,000 each of the 4 years at a time when there were 2 schools that were participating. But they've expanded the participation to 15, so they've changed the maximum amount, which is unbelievable to me because they promised us $350,000 a year for 4 years. But can't fight City Hall, so we get what we get, right? Unfortunately, what that meant is that in that grant, it was funding for certified positions. We've had to reduce in force. So everybody who was hired as part of that grant knew when they accepted the position that their position was subject to grant funding, right? We're very clear with that and transparent with people on the front end. But it was still disappointing to have to notify the individual that was affected that the position is no longer available. Happy to report that the individual did find other employment and gave a great reference and helped her secure that. So I'm very happy about that. But that still leaves us with 3 positions that it would be difficult to eliminate at this time based on schedules and our support services that we built around that. So we've stripped out that 1 position, and we've also stripped out all of the instructional resources, materials, professional development, and consultants that we had hoped to bring to Gildersleeve as part of it, and have now only committed to funding the 3 positions that we've included in that grant. So the problem is that if you add up the cost for salary and benefits of those 3 positions, it's about $190,000, right? So the grant is going to fund $150,000 of that, so we're $40,000 short. Interestingly enough, we have, as you know, because we didn't have to eat into our ESSER funds too deeply with last year's deficit, we have $47,000 remaining in our ESSER funds. My recommendation and discussion with the Personnel Committee, which I believe was supported, and my recommendation to you tonight, is that we apply the balance of those ESSER funds to fill in this gap and cover the remainder of the 3 certified positions at Gildersleeve. And again, as I mentioned, Personnel Committee to discuss this and really support the personnel.
Right. difficult situation, but I think you guys have come up with a plan that, you know, brings us where we need to be.
For this year.
For this year, and only for this year,
This will
right?
definitely affect next year.
And as a reminder, while this does use the remainder of the ESSER funding, the ESSER funding must be used during this school year. So it is being used appropriately
Right.
and in a timely way.
So when does the grant end, did you say?
The ESSER funds expire at the end of this year.
Or the grant that is
The
paying for the,
The SIG grant we'll get this year, and next year, and then it will expire.
it has nothing to do with this, but my mind keeps flashing back to a discussion we've been having all along is, when are we gonna hit that cliff? And then this just starts feeling like some of that's starting to happen.
It absolutely did happen. right?
Oh, yeah.
With the SIG grant here.
It was built into the budget.
Right, it was built into the budget. Now, the thing about it is when we offer people positions that are grant funded, those letters of hire state very clearly, the position is grant funded, if the grant goes away, the position goes. So people sign up knowing that, right? The cliff you're talking about is the ESSER funds we've allocated this year, and we have a $200,000 built-in deficit that we're using for paraprofessionals this year. We've ledgered that out. Now, as we build next year's budget, we know it's either going to be made whole with other grant funding sources or local property tax funds, local education funds, or we're gonna eliminate 5 paraprofessional positions. Those are gonna be the choices that we're gonna start talking about in November, December as we build the budget.
The difference is, when we talk about that cliff, typically in a typical budget process, we have time to examine all the options and think it through and make planful decisions. This was kind of sprung on us
Sprung on us.
in August, when the school year started 2 weeks later.
On a Friday at 4 o'clock in August, too.
Yeah.
Can you just explain a little bit about the positions themselves and what those roles are within
Yeah.
Gildersleeve?
Sure, so we have 2 special education teachers and 2 interventionists. So the position that we've cut back on is one of the reading interventionists. We still have our own reading interventionist and a math interventionist, but I definitely can't recommend reducing the special education positions or one of those interventionists. We just have too much built in terms of caseloads, case management, and programming.
Right, so that's what I'm wondering, how are you managing with that one that you did have to eliminate?
Yes, that was a reading interventionist position. Just a little background on that position. We didn't fill that position until almost November of last year. So we didn't start the school year with that position. And it really worked out nicely. As soon as we hired that person, Mary Ellen Lavalette, if you remember, was a reading teacher at Valley View. She took another position closer to home, and we had that vacancy. So that person actually spent the majority of their time here with us, working at Valley View, helping us buy the time necessary to fill that reading position. And then she was back at Gildersleeve, I think for about the balance of April, May, and June. So that's the position we cut back on. It really never took deep root at Gildersleeve because we didn't hire till November, and then with help, she was very gracious with her time and did a wonderful job helping fill that void for that short period. Well, it wasn't a short period of time, it was about 2 months before posting, finding the right person, interviewing and hiring a new reading teacher at Valley. So it's a step back, but it's not completely horrible. We still have two interventionists, a math and a reading at Gildersleeve, and the 4 special education positions that are necessary.
Thank you.
Other questions for Charles? No? Does someone willing to make the motion?
Sure, I'll recommend to the Board of Education the authorization of remaining ESSER funding to support certified faculty positions designed to help students recover learning loss resulting from the pandemic at Gildersleeve Elementary School during the 2023-24 school year.
Thanks. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Seems to be unanimous, thank you. All right. We do not have any old business on our agenda this evening, so we're gonna move on to committee reports. I was not able to be at the last curriculum meeting. Stacy and Kim, was there anything beyond what we discussed tonight that you wanted to report on?
No, we just did a real quick meeting, and it was all about the research study. So.
Perfect. We'll be meeting in a couple of weeks, later this month. Policy.
We'll meet on 9/13, and I would ask that we change that date because I am reading Teacher of the Year applications in
Nice.
Hartford, interviewing.
Maybe we can start an email and look at that date.
Okay, so we should look at that date.
Personnel, you heard about the details of our last meeting just now. And I don't believe we have anything on the books at the moment. Buildings and grounds,
Nothing on the books right now.
craft liaison.
Next meeting is September 20th, and they had a great, in the Excel Center, the convocation with all the staff that was there. It was pretty amazing.
Dave, Board of Selectmen?
The biggest part was the facilities discussion, and for everybody else's general information, they gave an update on the water. The test wells at the Portland Park proved to be very good, not only in quantity, but quality, so a lot of positive there with us being able to possibly move forward with our own water and not buying it from MBC. So that's probably a savings for everyone at some point.
Committee on Solidarity.
I got an email a couple days ago that I just forwarded to all you guys moments ago. It's about an event they have coming up, and it's a formal invitation, although they should have sent it to you, Charles, but that's fine, as the liaison for me, to an event. I'm trying to find the date here as I read this. September 18th. Yeah, September 18th, 6:30. It's a Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. It's they did hold this at the library already for, I think, for families or for other, like this is a repeat of that and focusing on Board of Ed.
I think it's a book discussion.
It is. It's a podcast. It's a whole marketing. It's an individual who has done podcasts and written a book and goes out and does these talks.
And this is Sarah, you've been involved with this, right? That it's a follow-up from Juneteenth?
I am not been involved with it, unfortunately.
I'm sorry. Didn't catch up with that.
I think they referenced Juneteenth in the letter because at the Juneteenth event, they were, I think you could win a copy of the book. So the book has been in a lot of talk about the book over the last several months to get to, I think, to the point now where they're doing the event.
All right. Well, thanks for forwarding that. All right. And I believe we're still looking, if anyone is interested in, we determined that they meet on the night of Board of Education meetings. Is that
They
correct?
do generally, yes.
Okay.
That's their.
That was our issue.
I would hope that high school and faculty, people participate as well, and hopefully that has been sent out to students and faculty members.
Through the schools. Yep, we can ask about that.
I think, was it in your newsletter last week?
Yeah, I'm gonna put it to everybody.
Sorry.
All right. Equity and Inclusion Coalition. Are we on that yet this year?
No, but the meeting is scheduled for October 16th, and then every other month thereafter. And Eric did send out a September Equity and Inclusion newsletter today, so I think everybody should receive that.
Perfect.
We did.
Yep.
It was good.
Thank you. All right, audience of citizens. Do we have anyone in person or online who wishes to address the board? We do? Okay, wonderful. If you don't mind unmuting them, and they can just be sure to say their name and address for the record.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, it's Diane Lopez. My address is 22 Old Carriage Road in Portland. And I'm coming tonight. My son Camus recently graduated, and he is now in a transition academy that's being held at Biz. Kudos, we have a wonderful, wonderful teacher, Ted Pinto. Camus met him this summer in summer school, really off to a really nice start. He's wonderful with the kids, and Portland is really lucky to have him. The location of the Transition Academy is in the basement of Biz, in the home ec kitchen. I'm hearing is sketchy. And we did hear that this is a temporary situation, but we're really hoping, you know, it's still nice that the kids can go outside, but come wintertime, it's gonna be really dreary in there. So that's one concern of mine. The upside is downtown. Kids get to go and work at different things and do training downtown, which will be key. So the location is nice, the room not so nice. And as you heard from Dawn, transportation is a real problem. The kids aren't getting to their jobs. Some of their jobs start at 8:30 and they're not getting to the transition academy till, my son gets there at 9:45. I have Life 360 on him so I can see how he goes and what time he arrives. We do know there is a brand new van which we're excited about and people are gonna get trained, but we're already going into week 2 and with the early dismissal this week, totally understand it with the heat, but the transition kids are leaving at 11:15, so they're going in at 9:45 and getting out at 11:15, which doesn't leave much time for school content. And also, to date, Camus is supposed to get a little over an hour a week of speech therapy, and nothing has happened as of yet. And I totally get it, we're only the first week in. Location is good, transportation is a problem, the teacher is wonderful. I just wanted to make everybody aware, but if you're talking a couple more weeks for transportation, some of the kids have right up at the high school cafeteria work, and they're supposed to start at 8:30, not possible. I'm even offering to bring him to the cafeteria so he gets to work. Just some issues that we have to get the program really moving along in the right direction. Thanks for the time, appreciate it.
Thank you, Diane. Is there anyone else online who wishes to address the board this evening? Thank you. All right. Board of Education member comments. Let's start over here, Stacy.
I'm very excited about this Transition Academy. I'm just curious if we had an opportunity that we missed to explore the needs for licensure, you know, accommodations just prior, like if we could have done anything differently, if we kind of learned from other programs as far as what the needs were from a transportation standpoint. I feel badly that, you know, we can't get there yet. I mean, I know we will, but I'm excited about that whole undertaking.
Yeah, thanks, Stacy. Kim?
I have no additional comments.
Meg? Dave?
Yeah, I just want to circle back on Lou Pear's letter that he wrote about the facilities committee, because one of the last paragraphs, when he makes a couple of comments, one where I know Lou's passionate about this, and we all were, but, you know, he says that, you know, if we do another poll or anything like that, we're gonna get mixed results, and I totally agree with him on that. However, he makes the insinuation that if we do explore other options, we're gonna have to start from scratch, but my opinion is that we can explore both options in parallel and see what the data takes us. I just wanna make that statement that he doesn't speak for the group, he's speaking for himself.
Thanks, Dave. Kim?
No additional comments, thank you.
All right. Sarah?
I'll just add additional congratulations to Sam Tucker,
Yes.
being Portland Educator of the Year.
Yeah.
Really excited to see that again. And also glad to hear the Municipal Studies Committee is moving forward, especially in light of this week's early dismissals at the elementary school. And just, like you said, Charles, puts all the more onus on our boards to move this process forward. And also appreciation to Diane and welcoming everyone to come to the audience of citizens and share their thoughts, because that's one of the best ways to participate in this process and let your voice be heard.
Thanks, Sarah. I have two things to bring up. As Charles mentioned earlier, the Board of Selectmen has requested a Board of
Education representative to the new Municipal Building Study Committee. It's my job to appoint a board member to fill that role, so I'm just inviting anyone who's interested to reach out to me this week. You can email me or text or whatever. And if there's anyone willing to serve, that's wonderful. If there's more than one person willing to serve, we'll hash it out and make an appointment so that we can make sure that that seat is filled. And then the second thing I wanted to mention is just that every year at the CABE convention, CABE acknowledges boards of education who, with there's a leadership award and then there's a second tier board of distinction award. And the last couple conventions I've been at, I've listened to these other boards get acknowledged, and I never really investigated what they did to get that acknowledgement. And so this year I saw the email that came in, came in my inbox last week, and I said, I want to know what they're doing. So I pulled it up, and it acknowledges boards that meet 22 or 22 out of 34 criteria that they've established in 5 different categories. And I took a quick look through and I said, our board's doing most of this already. A lot of it is just really good practice stuff, setting annual goals, doing an annual evaluation of your superintendent, having an effective board self-evaluation process. And it goes on in these different categories, but it's a lot of keeping up to date with your policy manual. It's all the hard work that we're already putting into place. And so if there's interest from you all, I'd like to work with Charles to check off the things we're doing, and get your approval at our next meeting to submit this to CABE for a leadership award.
Why not us?
Why not us?
Right.
Especially because
Got
we're already doing it.
That's right.
I
That's
mean,
the easy lift.
That's the thing. It's not like, oh, we would have to do this thing. We would have to. No, I was like, yeah, we do that.
Yeah.
We do that. We do that.
That's
so I think we
great.
have to provide some documentation, but it really wouldn't be a heavy lift.
Yeah.
No, it's not a heavy lift.
If there's interest, I'll add it to our either our next agenda or our October 6th agenda to take a look at. Does that sound? The deadline is October 6th, and our meeting is October 3rd.
The second September.
Yes, we'll take a peek at it and set that. If there's interest, yes, is there consensus that would be?
Yeah.
All right.
Are you volunteering to do all the work?
That's what I heard.
I will work.
With Charles, I think she volunteered Charles as
I'm gonna volunteer
well.
Charles to work with me.
Deserve an award.
So it's only minimal to gather some of the documentation, but yeah.
We're worth it.
I think so. All right, I didn't have anything else this evening, but thank you. If there's nothing further, then is there a motion to adjourn?
The movie adjourned.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right. Thanks, everybody, and have a great evening.